Welcome to Where All Things Are Possible. I am your host, Kate Butler, and today's show is all about balance and who out there cannot use some tips on how to be more balanced in your life. I have someone today who is an expert that is going to bring us through her incredible journey of how she has found her way, found her path, and found more balance in her life. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce Michelle Reinglass, who is a balance expert, lawyer, and mediator, and also a #1 international best-selling author and speaker. Michelle, and we'll bring her picture up so you can see this beautiful, beautiful author that I'm about to introduce you to. Michelle Reinglass is a reformed lawyer turned mediator, #1 best-selling author, speaker, and master-level Reiki practitioner. Having worked in one of the most stressful occupations, and we're going to get into that in a minute, Michelle experienced extreme imbalance in her life. She tried every trick in the book and still was not able to achieve her goal until she discovered the secret formula to achieve imperfect real balance. It is Michelle's mission to help others achieve balance in their life as well, and we are going to dive into that today. Welcome, Michelle.
Oh, thank you, Kat. I may all start starting off. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes. We're so happy,
honored.
so happy to have you. Okay, so you have here, the first thing is that you are a balance expert, but you only got there obviously because there were some extreme imbalances in your life. And so you went on this journey to say, how do I come from extreme imbalance and then get my life into a place where I am starting to feel aligned and in balance and like I am doing things the way that it's supposed to be done or meant to be done. So can you tell us a little bit about kind of how that came about for you?
Oh, absolutely. So I started off, well, actually, I ended up becoming a lawyer, having no idea of the level of stress that I would be encountering. And I was not aware, in fact, I didn't even intend to be a lawyer. So it just happened through a former jealous fiance's actions that led me to go into that career. But anyway, so I become a lawyer, and what I didn't know was that being a lawyer is in the top 10% of stressful jobs.
Okay.
And in fact, we've had for many, many years, in addition to the Bar Association, they have an other bar, and the other bar is for substance and alcohol abusers, and so people who have needed help with those addictions. And so that gives you an idea of how stressful that position was. So,
Absolutely.
So I'm just living it and feeling stress every single day, all day long. I'm having certain things in the body, but I'm not connecting the dots whatsoever between what was going on with me. So I started realizing I'm out of balance. I know that. And I started pursuing all the balance tricks as you just identified. And I kept wondering, why is it I'm not getting any better? And it seems like I'm continuing to be in an imbalanced state. And so it was just going along that journey. And I went to uphills, downhills, and finally it took a long time, but I reached my understanding of balance. And I've learned that the notion that we have of work-life balance really is something that's different than everybody expects.
Okay, so you learned your definition of balance. So what does that look like for you? What does balance mean to you?
Balance, actually, well, let me just say what it's technically not, but it's what people perceive it to be.
Okay.
So we all talk about work-life balance, and work-life balance used to be sort of like a calculator, just we're going to calculate how much time we're going to spend in work and how much time we're going to spend at home and how much time we're going to spend with our spouse and but it's not math. And it's really more of being in flow. It's being, having an idea of what works for you. So for example, somebody like me might enjoy a frenetic pace of life but still be able to be in balance because it's what gets you joy and you're able to keep yourself healthy in that process. So it's when you're not in alignment with yourself, you're not in alignment with what you want and what brings you joy, that's when you get out of balance.
Okay. So what are some identifiers along the way? If I say, well, I'm not sure if I'm completely out of balance. I might feel some stress some days or some anxiety some days, but what were some signs along the way for you, right? Because you have in here that you were in extreme imbalance, right? That's
Yes.
a pretty bold statement. So tell me, when you were in extreme imbalance, how did you identify that you were? What were some of the signs along the way that really signaled to you that you were in that place?
Like so many things with the universe, I was given messages. And so those messages became physical. They started as mental, and it's just that feeling all the time that you're off kilter, the feeling like I'm never finished, I'm never done. I've always got something on my plate, I'm letting people down, and when I'm taking care of these people, I'm letting these people down, and it was always that guilt, that unease.
Yes.
And so what started happening is I started having stomach issues. And so we were trying to diagnose that, had a number of different procedures done, still wasn't fixed. And so then it was like one thing after another. I started reading about self-care, and I'd go get a manicure, pedicure, go take a spa day with girlfriends and things like that, and try to get into some kind of level of balance, and it would still be there. And I couldn't understand what it was. And my pace never abated. So in other words, my pace never slowed down.
Okay.
And so then I started getting other physical issues. So basically it took 2 autoimmune conditions and my green smoothie spill, slip and fall, concussion to finally knock into my head that this is serious, and I've been just giving it short shrift. And I also realized when I transitioned from being a lawyer to a mediator, I carried a backpack with me. I realized the common denominator was me, and I brought that backpack all through my life.
Wow. Okay. So you started to go on this journey of identifying that you were in extreme imbalance, and then you started to go on a journey of identifying what balance could look like in your life. And how did we get from extreme imbalance to a point of balance? What was this journey for you?
So it was a lot of trial and error.
Okay.
So that was the most important
That's great. People need to know that. Yes.
And so I kept thinking I was reaching that answer. I kept thinking I was reaching that secret sauce.
Okay.
And I think, okay, this is good. And by the way, I had a lot of accountability partners. I didn't ask for them to be my partners. They just sort of made themselves accountability partners. Yeah. These were the people I was not giving enough attention to, or would want more attention. And so it was like I was listening to those things, and I'd say, look, I just made time for this weekend. And, but it was like in dribbles and drabs. And so then I kept thinking, wait a minute, I just did all these practices. I'm meditating, I'm giving myself self-care, I'm taking vacations more, all those kinds of things, which sounds perfect.
Right.
And then I'd still be stressed and out of balance, and they're like, "What is wrong?" And let me back up. The out of balance part. How do you know you're out of balance? You don't feel good, and you don't feel happy, and you don't feel, or you're forcing, hey, I'm going to put myself in a good mood. Why is that when everything's so good technically in my life?
Right.
But it was just this unease, and so at first I finally reached a point where I thought, okay, I just need to make this a habit, and so I'd make certain things habits, but then I fall out of the habits.
Okay.
And so it took a long while, and so I think really there were a few things that finally triggered, but it was going through those things. Had I not gone through those first things, I wouldn't have reached had any ability to really identify what it takes to have a state of balance. And the state of balance can be different for you and me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how did you know that you got to a state of balance? What did that begin to look like in your life?
Space.
Okay.
Excuse me. Space is so important. I went through a decluttering, and I learned that, for example, decluttering is so important, not just for your home. I just took it as I want to clean my house up. So as long as I could clean my house up, I'm good. But it was more, I'd look around, excuse me, and I'd find I don't have enough space. I don't have space in my head. So
that's right.
And so I'd be starting the morning, and if I didn't do meditation, because I hadn't made it a full habit, then I'm going to have these. My head's going to be so clogged, and what's filling the head is, oh my God, at 8 o'clock I have to do this. At 8:30 I have to do this. Oh my goodness! Later today I've got to make sure that I get this taken care of. And you become a walking to-do list, and to-do list shouldn't even play a role in the balance.
Wow, so you became a walking to-do list, and now you're saying that as a balance expert, the to-do list should not even play a part in balance. Okay, so I'm hearing that the parts that are part of all of this, right, of the equation of feeling more balanced, it feels like more fulfilled, right?
Right.
Happier. These are all the words I'm hearing you say. So part of this equation is meditation, self-care, space. Is there another piece of the equation?
There's a few, actually.
Okay.
So I think the first thing people need to do is get to know themselves. And when I said your balance and my balance might be different,
That's right.
and out there could be 100 different people's balance.
Absolutely.
And the reason I say that is because balance is where we feel that flow, where we feel that alignment, where we feel happy and joyful. Then we're doing that. You can have chaos around you.
Yes.
You could have kids screaming and yelling, and you could be like, oh, listen to my kids, because you're in flow and you're in alignment and you're happy with what is surrounding you. But on the other hand, you could have peace and quiet and zen and be going nuts, and that's not for you. Or, so it's usually the definition of a balance is reaching like this zen state.
Okay.
And so, and yes, it's, by the way, having calm and still time is very, very important. It's very critical to your balance. So, but it doesn't have to be, reaching that zen. Your zen might be with lots of things going on around you. Now, and now let's say you have a household and you have a spouse who really is zen. Now you're working on a balance where you can have your flow and they can have their flow.
Okay, I love this. Yeah, so it's different for everyone. So you decided to take your journey and your story and the lessons that you've learned along the way, and you decided to embark on the journey of becoming a published author. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about this journey.
Oh my goodness. I wanted to write since I was a kid. And in fact, I wrote articles for teen magazines and 17, I think, like that. Nobody ever published me. But I had fun writing them. And so I've always wanted to write, and I've had books inside of me, my head. In fact, I have one unwritten that goes all the way back probably 30 years. So it'll get seen one day.
Yep.
But fast forward to 2016, and I was at an international conference of mediators. And actually, I was asked to speak on balance. And actually, my response was, have you met me? I am the most unbalanced person you've ever met.
Oh, my goodness.
So I turned them down. And they didn't.
Wow.
They wouldn't take my turn down, so to speak.
Wow.
And they kept insisting. And so I found, all right. So what I did do is my balance was I went up a little bit later, and I didn't stay for the whole conference. It was one of those conferences, and I just said I was conferenced out.
Yep.
So I went and we had a blast, and the program was really popular. There were so many people that were attending our breakout session, and I just went, wow, all these people really are going through the same thing I went through? That's kind of it's a hard thing to actually perceive, because you always think you're in your own, you're the only one that's going through these journeys. But in any event, so at the end of the program, a couple of the people said, you need to write a book. I'm like, So the next thing I know, everything was flying at me. They're turning it into a book.
Wow.
But along the way, there was an interruption. And that was me getting introduced to Kate Butler.
Perfect place for us to take a break. Okay, so we have to go to commercial, but we are going to dive into how this all unfolded with Michelle becoming a #1 international best-selling author, sharing her story in the way of a book, and she is going to dig into all of this, the challenges along the way, and how she ended up with her story here and where she sits today as a balance expert when we return. So see you back in just a moment.
Cheesy grooves. Flavor, flavor, flavor! Crunch! Cheesy grooves. So much flavor, it's a mind crunch.
Let's face it, lawyers get a bad rap. I'm Erin Brucey, host of Legal Breakdown, where we dissect legal topics for the everyday viewer. with a mix of interesting guests to talk about current events and hot legal topics. Let's work together to make the law accessible and relevant to everyone. Catch us every week on RVN Television.
Oh, baby, hey, look here. This ain't just stuffed crust. This is Papa John's crust, stuffed.
Where are you when it comes to relationships? I'm Dr. Donna Marie, and this is Grace and Space. We're talking the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to life and love and relationships. Join me here, Grace and Space, on RVN, the Compassion Healing Network. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back to Where All Things Are Possible. I am your host, Kate Butler, and I'm here with Michelle Reinglass, who is walking us through her journey of going from extreme imbalance to a place of balance, sharing her story in a book, becoming a _1 international best-selling author, and she's about to share with us also what is next. So we left off with an interruption, interruption in your journey. So let's pick up there, because I was really curious to see what you were going to say about that. I haven't heard you share this, and I do know your story, and I had the absolute honor of publishing Michelle's story in this book, Women Who Empower, which became a #1 international best-selling book. And so I knew your story, but I've never heard you share it in quite this way. So this is very intriguing for me as well. So you were on your path, and then there was an interruption, and I will let you share the rest of the story.
So I was merrily working on this other book, and I got introduced to somebody who introduced me to Kate Butler, and she told me about the books, and I love the concept of women put together, writing. We're not writing it together, but writing our own chapters in this book and collaborating. What really hooked me even more, I was already pretty much sold. What really hooked me almost more was the title. When she told me what it was Women Who Empower, and I just went, oh my goodness, I have been trying to put on women empowerment events, and it's one of my favorite topics to discuss and try to uplift women, to inspire women, and and so that was just near and dear to my heart. And so I got this opportunity, this golden opportunity, and meeting Kate, by the way, and I'm not saying this just because she's here and she's having me on her show. I'm not pandering to her. I'm just simply telling you, she is the real deal. She's an amazing human being, and I have learned so much and grown so much. But anyway, and the women in the group, it's just being in that group, I can't even explain. It's like taking power from whatever you're doing that you love and your joy and 10x it. And maybe 30x it? Maybe
yes, 30x it. That's even better, because there's 30 women per book, and we come together in a collective. Yes.
So, and I wrote a chapter that came from one of my early days in my legal career, and the reason I picked that chapter, and it has a whole bunch of things, including a car accident, not my car, but on the way to court. But it had to do with corruption in the court, and it had to do with how badly I was treated. But the most important part that I brought up, and this, I have to tell you, I have a hard time. I used to have a hard time being vulnerable. As a trial lawyer, you're tough, you're strong, you're
absolutely
not out there. And I ended up in court crying for the first time.
Yep.
I cried in court. I was humiliated, and the judge was just being so awful, and the opposing party and everything. So when that part finished, I did get back at the court on the judge, and made my statements. I made all the statements that I wanted to get off my chest. It was my last court appearance in that court, because I was already on appeal with all the rest of it. So as I walked out of that courtroom, so two main things that happened. One of them was the people in the aisles were holding their hands out and high-fiving me as I walked down. So here I am, horrified as a lawyer that I cried, and I'm just, my head's down.
Yep.
And I'm like, whoa, what's this going on? And then when I got back to my office, the court reporter called me, and I didn't even want to talk to her. I was so humiliated that and long story about that whole thing. That's in the chapter. You have to read the chapter for that.
Yes, in the book.
In
It's
the book.
Yes.
So I get back to my office, and I'm told that the court reporter's on the phone. So I pick up the phone, and the ultimate thing is she told me I inspired her to go to law school. And I went, "Are you nuts?" I said, "Are you kidding me? How could I have inspired you? I'm a girl who cried in court." And she told me that that judge had made so many lawyers cry, had been so abusive to everybody, and I was the first one to stand up to him.
And this was your empowering moment in Women Who Empower. And I must say, you're totally giving me Elwood vibes right now with with everything that's going on and the empowering moment, right? With you standing up for yourself. And so I always say, right, when you publish a book, whether it be a children's book through our company or whether it being part of the collective books in our company, Kate Butler Books, a lot of times you get bitten by the book bug. Because there's just nothing like publishing, am I right?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. And so you now went on to start to publish your next book, and this is about, you're talking now more about your own journey after this event had occurred. You're stepping into your power. You have this empowering moment, but you still realize that you have this backpack that you're unpacking along the way. So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned that earlier, in our conversation about this backpack that you brought along with you. Tell us about this backpack and how you started to unpack it.
The reason I think this is important to talk about, because this is one I'm positive is I'm not alone on that journey. And this is where we take, like as I said, taking steps to achieve balance and, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and this is going to take care of it all. And then it's like, why is this weight still on me? Why is it so, being pulled down so much? And it took me the longest time to finally realize everything, kind of like Dorothy in Wizard of Oz, I had the power all along to have fixed myself. And I just didn't do it. I just blame, oh, by the way, the blame, I mean, it's that person's fault, or it's this particular fault, and, because this happened. And yeah, things happened that one could blame, but at the same time, I'm the one that had the power. And I was just allowing myself to keep that weight on my back.
Yes.
And it did. I thought when I changed the careers from, that it would just be done.
But it was all external things that you were changing, and what needed to change was internal.
Nothing internal. And so when I finally saw that, I go, I got some work to do. I have more work to do than I thought I did, but at least I know what I need to do.
Absolutely.
And so that's where I kind of got that aha moment, and I started working. And then I really took to heart writing the book on balance.
I love it.
And
yes. It's so wonderful. It's such a wonderful journey you are on with this book that you're writing. And if you can give us a sneak peek into some of the things that you are sharing in this book. So what are some applicable tools or takeaways that you can share with us today that someone out there is saying, you're right, Michelle, I am on this journey with you. You're right, Michelle, my backpack is very heavy. You're right, Michelle, I'm starting to identify that I do need to go inward and begin to maybe look at some things or change some things or shift some things, but where do I begin? So what would you share with someone maybe asking that question?
I think when I said I'm going to just repeat this briefly because I know we don't have limited time. One of the things I said earlier, I think you have to kind of know yourself. And when you know yourself and really accept every part of you, I mean, we all have good, bad, and whatever parts, and we all have things that we feel shame and et cetera. Accepting that, just the knowing part, and then you can say, you know what, I do seem to work better when I'm under pressure. I mean, and that's why I procrastinate, or I seem to do these things. Knowing yourself, and then if there's something you want to change, then you can actually do it. So it's unpacking. We have packing and unpacking in a backpack. So that's part one. And then the second thing, so I'm going to go into my 4 M's, and my first M is motivation. And what you often hear is you've got to get motivated. No, we create the motivation. And if we don't create the motivation, we're not doing anything. We're going to be right where we are with the backpack or whatever it is. You might have a fanny pack if you were, higher level than myself. But, so that's number one. You have to create your motivation. And when you create that motivation, the next step is now you're going to take other steps. And so one of the, and I know it's, people say, oh, I'm so sick and tired of hearing it, but it's mindset. And it is a very important word because it's going on 24 hours a day.
That's right.
7 days a week.
Yes.
And we don't realize all the thoughts that we are allowing in. So, but you can take your mind and actually set the mind. So that this is, I know these are active verbs here. You have to take action. So set the mind that you are going to take certain steps. You're going to do things differently. So I also recommend doing things in baby steps, and that'll just laid out through the book.
Yep.
So because otherwise you're going to be overwhelmed, and you're going to continue either get more imbalanced or
That's
more
right.
stressed, and we're going to diffuse the whole reason that we're even trying to get balanced. And so the third M, so we have motivation, meditation. We also have movement, and so your body needs to be moving. And that exercise, so sorry, that exercise will help keep the energy flowing, and it also, it has a major part of what happens.
Absolutely. Yes.
And so it's those
that mind-body connection.
The mind-body
Absolutely.
connection.
Yep.
And so connecting all that, and by the way, let's take that mind-body connection. I won't dwell on the what it was, but the stomach issues that I dealt with went on for years, and they led into the 2 autoimmune conditions. First one wasn't so serious. The second one was the one that caught my attention. I still didn't stop everything, So it was just little things that happen. So when you start realizing what's going on with your body, another thing I want to mention. So when you start noticing the things that are going on with your body, that's when you can actually take action. But another thing is to get to know your triggers. We all have triggers, things that happen to us. All it takes is a word, or it can take something that makes you think of something or somebody, and we end up, we're triggered, and you go, this is where we devolve.
And so the fourth M then is?
Oh, there you go. That's right. So I had my motivation.
We have our motivation, our meditation, our movement.
And why am I blanking?
Is it the mindset?
That we had mindset. I think I already had that was the second one.
That's okay. So
Okay.
the mindset. So those are the 4, and I might not have them in order. But
I didn't. That's right. It is mindset.
Okay.
Phew, I did
So
have
that's
it.
the first one then. So we have mindset, motivation, meditation, and movement. And I do think that mindset, and you started with that, and so the mindset is absolutely the primary one and the most important one. We have over 80,000 thoughts a day, right, that go through our mind. And so of course that's where we start. Of course that's the most important thing, because what we focus on grows. And if we have 80,000 thoughts a day, and we are and all of those 80,000 thoughts are towards stressful things or anxious things, right? Then of course that's what's showing up in our life. So by switching this, by taking into account the things that you're sharing with us, by unpacking, right, that heaviness or that backpack along the way, we can start to identify some of these thoughts within these 80,000, and maybe we even shift it halfway.
Right.
If we even shift half of our thoughts, we will make a remarkable change in our life. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I spill my water.
Would you agree?
Absolutely. In
Yeah.
fact, I think that is why it's so important to talk about the baby steps. Do things in small steps, because you're going to get there. And every step forward, and sometimes what we do is we do 2 steps forward and then 5 backwards.
That's right.
We've still made progress because you started on those
That's
2
right.
steps. And the next one, what if you do 4 steps? And so it's giving yourself, by the way, Kate actually is the one that taught me this, is celebrating our wins.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
that's something I've for the last couple of years, started to do. I never took those little wins. So that's why I would say, take those little wins and
Yep.
honor them, and know that that was your step forward instead
Great.
of berating yourself for the fact that you stepped back. So
Wonderful.
you do that in those little steps and you get there.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Kate.
Oh my goodness, it's been absolutely amazing to have you here today.
my God.
Women Who Empower, available on Amazon. Michelle Reinglass here today, sharing her brilliant tips with us. Definitely check her out. Where can we find you, Michelle?
We have my website's probably the best place
Okay.
to start, and that's www.reinglass, ReinglassAdr.com.
Okay.
And that's got everything in it.
ReinglassAdr.com, and that's where you can find Michelle, connect with her through the socials, follow her for her next book coming out, and all the speaking events that she has coming up as well. She's a great follow, great tips, our balance expert. Thank you for being here today, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. It was such an honor.
Yes, it was amazing, and thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of Where All Things Were Possible. We will see you next time.